The sound of your alarm clock ringing at 4:30 on a freezing January morning, pitch black outside, everyone else in the house still asleep. You'd be tempted to roll over, pull the blankets back up, pretend you hadn't heard it. But you couldn't, because today was the first day of the January sales, and if you wanted any chance at the bargains, you needed to be queuing outside the shop by 5 a.m. at the latest. This wasn't online shopping with discount codes sent to your email. This wasn't Black Friday spreading across a whole weekend. This was the January sales in 1970s Britain, when everything went on sale at once, on one specific day, and if you weren't there early, you'd miss out completely. The tradition started on the day after Boxing Day, December 27th, when the shops reopened after the Christmas closure. But the really serious sales, the ones where prices dropped by half or more, those kicked off in early January. The exact date would be announced in the local paper, sometimes with massive adverts promising incredible reductions. Dresses half price, coats 60% off, children's shoes, 2 pairs for the price of 1. The sort of savings that actually mattered when money was tight and every pound counted. You'd plan for it like a military operation. Decide which shops you'd hit first, what you were looking for, how much you could afford to spend. Some families would coordinate, mum going to one department store while dad tried another, meeting up later to compare what they'd found. The goal wasn't leisure shopping or browsing. The goal was getting the best bargains before they vanished. The wake-up on sales morning was brutal. 4:30, maybe 5 in the depth of winter when it was still completely dark and bitterly cold. You'd dress in layers because you'd be standing outside for at least an hour, maybe 2, and British January mornings were absolutely freezing. Thick coat, scarf, gloves, woolly hat. Some people brought flasks of tea, though most just endured the cold, stamping their feet, rubbing their hands together, breath visible in clouds. The walk to the high street in the dark was surreal. Streets normally empty at that hour would have people converging from all directions, all heading the same way, all with the same determined look. You weren't alone in this madness. Everyone was doing it. The camaraderie of shared suffering, nodding at other early risers, everyone acknowledging the absurdity of being up this early for shopping but doing it anyway. Arriving at the shop to find you weren't first was both disappointing and reassuring. Disappointing because you'd hoped to be nearer the front of the queue. Reassuring because clearly you weren't the only person desperate enough to be out here in the freezing dark. The queue would already be forming, 20 or 30 people, sometimes more, lined up along the pavement outside shops that wouldn't open for another hour or 2. The queues were remarkably orderly considering what was about to happen. British queuing culture was strong even then, and people respected the order. First come, first served. No pushing in, no queue jumping. If you arrived at 6 a.m, you accepted your place behind the people who'd arrived at 5:30. That was the rule. That was how it worked. But the atmosphere was tense. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone had their list of what they wanted, what they needed. Christmas had just happened, which meant many families had spent more than they could afford and desperately needed bargains to stretch their budget through January and beyond. The sales weren't frivolous. For many people, this was essential shopping, the only time of year when certain items became affordable. Conversations would start up in the queue, strangers bonding over the shared experience. What are you after? Hoping for a winter coat, mine's falling apart. Need shoes for the kids, they're growing like weeds. Looking for bedding, ours is threadbare. People would share tips, warn each other about which departments had the best reductions, discuss strategy for getting through the shop efficiently once the doors opened. The real characters emerged during the wait. The women, usually women, though some men too, who came every year without fail, who knew exactly how the sales worked, who'd been doing this for decades. They'd hold court in the queue, dispensing advice to newcomers. Don't waste time in homewares, they never discount properly. Head straight for clothing, that's where the real bargains are. Watch out for the men's department, it gets vicious in there. Some brought camping stools to sit on, the clever ones who'd learned from previous years that standing for 2 hours on a cold pavement was unnecessarily punishing. Most just stood, shifting weight from foot to foot, trying to keep circulation going, hands shoved deep in pockets, noses going numb. Children were sometimes dragged along, though not the really young ones. Teenagers, reluctant and grumpy, forced by their parents to help carry bags or to stake a claim in different departments. They'd stand there looking miserable, wondering why they couldn't be in bed like normal people, while their mums explained this was important. This was how they could afford new school clothes for the year. The light would gradually come up, the sky shifting from black to dark grey. Dawn still an hour or more away, but at least you could start to see properly. The queue would continue growing behind you, snaking down the pavement, people arriving at 7 or 7:30, realising they were far too late for the best positions but joining anyway, hoping there'd be something left. The shop windows would be dark still, but you could peer through, trying to see what was inside, what might be available. Sometimes staff would be moving around inside, preparing, and you'd watch them enviously. At least they were warm. The anticipation would build. 30 minutes until opening. 20 minutes. 15. Please subscribe to the channel to keep these stories alive. Then, usually around 8:30 or 9 the moment you'd been waiting for. The lights inside would come on. Staff would appear at the doors. Sometimes there'd be an announcement, thanking people for their patience, reminding everyone to shop safely, and then the doors would open. What happened next was controlled chaos. People would surge forward, not running exactly, that would be undignified, but walking very quickly, very purposefully, heading straight for their target departments. The orderly queue would dissolve into a mass of determined shoppers, all trying to get to the bargains first. Inside, it was mayhem. Tables piled high with reduced items, racks crammed with discounted clothing, signs everywhere proclaiming the savings. 50% off, half price, massive reductions, and people everywhere grabbing, sorting through piles, holding items up to check sizes, making instant decisions about whether to buy or keep looking. The fitting rooms would have queues longer than the one outside had been. No time for leisurely trying on. You'd grab your size, hope it fit, maybe hold it up against yourself for a quick check. Some people would try things on right there in the aisles, coats over their own coats, holding up dresses against themselves while friends gave opinions. The really popular items would vanish within minutes. A rail of winter coats reduced by 60%, gone in 10 minutes, women literally pulling them off hangers, checking sizes, claiming them. Children's shoes at half price. Mothers would be elbowing each other aside, searching frantically for the right size, grabbing multiple pairs because at these prices you bought for next year too. Conflict was inevitable. Two women reaching for the same item at the same moment, both claiming they saw it first, neither willing to back down. Heated words would be exchanged. Sometimes shop assistants would intervene. Sometimes they'd just let the customers sort it out themselves. Usually it would be settled peacefully, one person conceding with bad grace. But occasionally things would escalate. Proper arguments, voices raised, other shoppers gathering to watch. The atmosphere was frenzied, but somehow also joyful. The thrill of the hunt, finding something you actually wanted at a price you could afford, that rush of triumph. You'd clutch your finds close, protective, wary of anyone who might try to take them. Some people use shopping baskets like shields, defending their territory in the crowded aisles. By mid-morning, the shop would be absolutely heaving. People who'd queued from 5 a.m, people who'd arrived when the doors opened, people who'd turned up at 10 arc thinking they'd still find bargains, all crammed together, moving slowly through departments picked over but not yet empty, searching for whatever was left. The checkouts would have queues stretching back through the shop. 20, 30, 40 people deep, all clutching their bargains, waiting their turn to pay. The wait could be an hour or more, standing in line, feet aching, arms tired from carrying everything, but you endured it because you'd come this far, found these things, and you weren't leaving without them. People would strike up conversations in the checkout queues too, showing off what they'd found, comparing bargains. Got this coat for $5, was $15. These sheets were half price. Found shoes for my husband, he'll never notice their last season's style. A sense of shared accomplishment, survivors of the sales battlefield, all clutching their victories. If you remember those January sales, share your story in the comments. What was your best bargain? Did you ever queue before dawn? Paying was straightforward but slow. Cash only, no credit cards for most people. You'd count out your coins and notes, receive your change, watch the assistant wrap your purchases in brown paper and string, professional and quick despite the crowds. Then you'd emerge back onto the high street, bags in hand, exhausted but satisfied, joining the stream of other shoppers heading home. The walk back was always lighter somehow, despite the heavy bags. You'd made it. You'd survived the sales, found what you needed, got the bargains. Your feet would hurt, your shoulders would ache from carrying everything, but you'd be mentally calculating the money saved, already planning what to do with the difference. At home, you'd spread everything out, show the family what you'd found. Your husband would nod approvingly at his new jumper bought for half price. The children would try on their new shoes, complaining they were too big, but that's why you bought them, for growing into. You'd pack away the bedding, the towels, the coat you'd wanted for months but couldn't justify at full price. The sales would continue for days, even weeks, but everyone knew the first day was crucial. That's when the best items were available, when the reductions were deepest, when the selection was widest. Go on day 2 and you'd find picked over racks, odd sizes, things nobody wanted. The serious bargain hunters went on day 1, and day 1 meant queuing in the freezing dark. Not everyone could do it, of course. People who worked couldn't take the morning off to queue for sales. Single parents couldn't leave young children at home while they shopped. The elderly and infirm couldn't stand in the cold for hours. The sales favoured those with flexibility, health, and determination. But for those who could manage it, it was an annual ritual, as much a part of January as new calendars and resolutions. Looking back now, it seems slightly mad. Getting up at 4:30 a.m. to stand in the freezing cold outside a shop, just to save a few pounds on items that would probably go on sale again later anyway. But that's missing the point. Money was tighter then. Wages were lower, prices were higher relative to income, and those savings genuinely mattered. 50% off a winter coat wasn't just a nice bonus, it was the difference between buying one or going without. The sales were also about something else, something harder to quantify. Community, maybe. Shared experience. The knowledge that everyone around you was in the same boat, all trying to make their money stretch, all willing to endure discomfort for the sake of their families. There was dignity in that, in the effort, in the determination to provide. Today's sales are different. They're online, spread across weeks, algorithm-driven, personalised. You can shop from bed in your pyjamas at any hour of the day or night. It's convenient, certainly. Easier, more comfortable. But something's been lost too. That communal experience, those conversations in queues, that shared understanding of sacrifice and reward. The January sales in 1970s Britain were cold, exhausting, sometimes frustrating. The queues were long, the crowds were overwhelming, and the competition could be fierce. But they were also ours, a tradition that brought people together, that marked the turning of the year, that gave families a chance to buy what they needed at prices they could manage. Share your memories of those dawn queues, subscribe to keep these moments of British life alive, and remember when shopping the sales meant commitment, endurance, and the absolute certainty that if you wanted the bargains, you had to be willing to freeze for them.